after 24 hours or at least a day and a half is set, your paint pour mixture should be dry. It's gonna be hard to the touch. If you wanna test to make sure that it's completely dry, I would suggest like very edge corners to press down on. You don't wanna go straight for the middle because if it's not dry by any chance, then you're gonna have a big smudgy spot. So, like I said, day and a half is probably safest, 24 hours at the very least, and check your corners. So we wanna make sure it's completely dry before we put our epoxy coat on. That's gonna be your epoxy A container that you have, and epoxy B. So what we're going to do is mix these up. They're equal parts. I know it seems like these aren't even, it's just because this is a bigger cup. And the reason why this has to be completely dry is that if we go to pour this onto our tray, while the paint underneath is still wet, it will smear and smudge it and we'll completely lose the effect that we worked so hard to create before with our paint pour. So I'm going to try to scrape out as much as I can of my epoxy B, or excuse me, epoxy B. Epoxy A is the hardener that's going to be a little thicker. You just pour that right on top. I'm just scraping it out as best as I can. It is important that you use all of what you have, or as much as you can get out of it. It's important that these are equal parts, because if you don't have enough of one or the other, it can turn out to be tacky or it won't harden. So then we're going to start to stir it with our little stir stick, aka popsicle stick right here. So when you first start, it's going to look kind of cloudy, almost like a pearl color. And you have to stir it for probably a solid 3 minutes before it stops looking cloudy. I'm gonna pause the video or cut it out. Okay, so now that you have mixed for about 3 minutes your mixture, mine looks kind of white. There's a lot of bubbles in it, almost like a glue texture. Those bubbles are gonna come out. I'm gonna have confidence in that. So you're gonna just scrape and pour all on top. Of your piece. This is where your card comes in. You're gonna spread it all around. Try to only use one side so that you're not getting so much of it in different areas. See, I'm just pulling it to the corners and the edges, and then I'm smoothing it out. It's okay if it's thicker in some areas. I just want it to touch all parts of the bottom here. Then I can kind of tip it in the light to see where I haven't, where I don't. As long as it is on that edge and covering that spot, then the epoxy will settle out by itself. And you have your tape still on, so it doesn't matter if you get it up high. You can peel that off when you're done. So again, I'm just checking my spots using the light. And pull some over here. I'm going to tell you a secret. I was a little impatient. I thought the corner of this was completely dry, and it wasn't. So I'm getting a little bit of a paint mixture in here. I'm just going to try to keep that from spreading as much as possible. So it's not going to look like the great paint pour on this corner that I wanted it to. But listen, I'll live. Life will go on. Your paint pour tray is still going to look awesome. So I want you to see here, you can kind of see that it's uneven in certain spots. But the longer this sits, it's going to settle. and it will even out, like I said, as long as there is epoxy in all of the spots, which you see you have an edge that I need to get it to. But as long as your epoxy is touching everything, this will even and spread itself out. And I might just take my card across the top, just kind of make sure, and I'm just lightly grazing it, very lightly. I'm not spreading anymore, just kind of evening it out. And I'll show you real quick. I'll come back over. This is what it will look like finished. So I've had this one sitting. It had the bumps and unevenness that you see with the gloss. Since it's been sitting for well over 6 hours, it's completely flat, perfectly shiny. And if you have any glitter that's left over or extra that you decide that you want to use or put on here, this would be a great time to do that. Now, I would suggest that you leave your tape on throughout this whole process, because if you do drip or get epoxy anywhere, you can always take it off with the tape. And that's it. If you have any questions, let us know at CarneyGarrettCenter.com or our Facebook page, and we'd be happy to help you out. Thanks.